Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and no, you are not seeing double, because with me today is Cameron Miller from the YouTube channel Novel Wonder, and he has just made a Twin Peaks homage film called Between Two Worlds, and we are here to talk about it, as well as our love for the show Twin Peaks. So, Cameron, this is going to be very strange saying your name, but thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Cameron. I appreciate it.
All right, so see, we're already doing doubles here. All right, let's just start off. Where do you come into being a fan of David Lynch, Mark Frost, Twin Peaks, etc.? Take me through your journey, how you got to be a fan of it to wanting to make your own film of it.
Okay, so I'm gonna get judged for this, but about 6 months ago, I watched Twin Peaks for the first time.
Oh, you're a newbie.
I'm a newbie, yeah.
Okay.
So I've had it on my watch list for about 4 years now. I watched I watched Lost a long time ago, and one of the things I always heard about Lost is that Twin Peaks paved the way for it to become one of the greatest shows of all time. And so that, along with several recommendations from friends, kind of pushed me to finally watch it over the spring of this year. And I just fell in love with it. And I think I saw a lot of my inspiration as a filmmaker, and I saw a lot of television film inspiration that came from it. It just kind of feels like the bedrock of modern entertainment in some sense. And it's just very beautifully shot. And so that was one of the things that made me want to create an homage to really the cinematography, the visuals, and that sort of thing.
What's really incredible about the first two seasons of Twin Peaks is that because they kept everything sort of retro, right?
Right.
Obviously, hair is going to be a different story, but I don't even see that being a problem here. But because things were kind of in that middle between the 50s and the 80s, and they didn't have any modern music, and the town is so insular, and they're not talking about like modern references, it's timeless. So people who watch it then or watch it now as a new viewer, you feel like it's like a brand new show. And especially since it hit, Blu-ray and streaming and all that, it is so crystal clear now. And because they shot on film and not video, like a lot of shows, I mean, it's just, it looks like a cinematic movie for, 29 episodes.
Yeah. Even the aspect ratio it's funny because you look at the aspect ratio and you're like, oh, this is just going to be some old 90s TV show. But there's just so much beauty and depth to it. And I think, like you said, part of that is the fact that it was shot on film, and it holds up. It holds up really well.
Well, yeah, it better. That's why we got season 3.
Yeah.
All right. So did you, because this is fascinating to me, because I was somebody who, watched it week to week, then had to wait a year for Fire Walk With Me to come out. And then I had to wait, about 25 years or so to see season 3, with the missing pieces coming out just a year or two before.
Right.
So did you just go season 1, 2, Fire Walk With Me, season 3? Did you just watch it all in a row like that?
So it's funny. My friend Justin, who plays Cooper in this, he's sort of my creative muse, my Kale, if you will. He and I have been watching a lot of TV shows together, and we watched Twin Peaks together, and we got to Fire Walk With Me. And once we saw that tonal shift, it's funny because you're watching it so quickly, you're sort of binging it. And so that tonal shift really hit hard. And we were like, okay, we need to take a little bit of a break, especially if the return has the same tone as that does. And so we took a little breather for about 2 weeks or so, and then we watched the return. So really, though, it was all sort of binged all at once.
Well, that was kind of smart to do that, because part of the return's power is that gap of time in between. Now, obviously, you didn't do 25 years, but you still gave it enough of a breather for you to feel like there had been some time that had passed.
Yeah. It was definitely, I appreciated it a whole lot more knowing that there was that tonal shift from season 2 to 3.
And you had seen the missing pieces,
Yes.
I'm assuming, after Fire Walk with Me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that Q2 fan edit that there's other fan edits out there, but the Q2 one kind of puts everything back in according to the script, except for one part. But it's the movie is so much better with all that footage kind of back in,
Yeah.
which maybe when you first see the missing pieces, you're thinking, yeah, I don't know if it would work. No, it works. And in fact, when you see it all together as one big, 4-hour film, it it actually is the Twin Peaks movie more or less that we were kind of promised in
Sure.
92 before Lynch had to cut it up because he only had a 135-minute contractual runtime he had to deliver. So everything else hit the floor except, Chet Desmond and then Laura Palmer.
Right.
What
Yeah.
did you think of the missing pieces? Did you think that kind of brought more balance to the film, or did you? I mean, you're a filmmaker, so I mean, you must have seen it and gone, surely there could have been some room for a few of these.
Yeah, I did. I actually, I think some people may look at Fire Walk with me and think that it's a perfect film because you know, um, it's airtight as far as the script goes, which is kind of strange for Lynch, and it really takes up more of a darker space. Whereas you've got this sort of beginning pieces that feel a lot more like the classic Twin Peaks. But I actually really like that juxtaposition between Laura Palmer's story and the nostalgia of Twin Peaks that you kind of get in more so in the missing pieces. I actually really prefer that. So
like
yeah,
for
I
instance,
loved it.
that whole scene with Annie on the stretcher, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it was 2023 and this movie was coming out, that would have been a post-credit
Oh
sequence,
yeah, it
right?
absolutely would have.
And I
Yeah,
think even in 92, if they had put that scene after the end credits, it would have blown everybody's mind and probably
absolutely.
would have helped shepherd another movie, if not another season earlier than we got it. But all
Interesting.
right, so you saw the return, season 3, as some people call it as well. What did you think? Because it's so different from the previous 2 seasons.
There's a bit of a gap. There's a bit of a, I shouldn't say gap. There's a bit of a lull in the middle that almost turned me off,
Mm.
but I sort of stuck with it as you do with a Lynch project. You trust him a little bit. And so I tried to do that and I ended up rewatching it shortly after the first time just to get a full appreciation for it. And I love it. I think it's pretty close to perfect.
It's interesting because even though it was filmed and edited and put out in 2017, in many ways it kind of is the embodiment of Hawk's living map, because there are things about it that I saw in 2017 that I didn't particularly care for. I mean, I know people who hated it outright, okay? And I
Right.
know some people who loved it right from the start. But there were a few things that I just kind of had to think about. And it's not like I didn't like them per se. I just didn't love them. I don't know. I was just kind of, I didn't know what to think.
Sure. Yeah.
But then you go 6 years later and then you look back at it and you go, oh, no, I totally understand. Like, even the
Yeah.
things that I still may not be totally 100% on board for, I kind of get why they did it.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So it's interesting how, like, the work doesn't change, but you as a person changes. And so therefore the way you approach said work changes.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so I don't even know. And I say this as somebody who has talked about season 3 ad nauseum. 10 years from now, we're all going to think about it differently than we do right now. It just,
Yeah.
whereas like season 1 and 2, I think the reason why that is so beloved is that your love for it like deepens and then holds there, as you move through life. but season 3 is constantly moving and evolving and changing, and so in a way it's very different than season 1 and 2, just in the way it was conceived.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's a really good point. It does have, obviously tonally it's completely different, but in my head, because I didn't experience the history of this coming out in real time, in my head I sort of thought, well, this season 3, The Return, has the potential to change television in the same way, and maybe it has in some sense, but it's not quite as beloved. And so I think there's something to be said about that, and how it does sort of have this evolution of the conversation around it. And obviously its popularity is far less, but what kind of cultural impact does it have? What kind of impact on the entertainment industry and television does it have? And even like as you're watching it, what impact does it have on your mind as you sort of take in that world?
Absolutely. So, all right. So you watched everything. Now, did you read the books as well, or have you not gotten to those yet?
I haven't gotten to the books yet.
Okay.
No.
I highly recommend you at least picking them up and having them as reference, just as a fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, whose idea was it to make Between Two Worlds?
So it was my idea. I was joking with my friends who we've made one film together before, one short film. It's called Partners. It's a visual homage to Better Call Saul, which is my favorite television series ever. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad. And so we made that a year ago when the finale for Better Call Saul came out. And it was just sort of like a love letter to the creators of the show, and just a way of sort of using the gifts I have and the equipment I have and the friends, and just kind of all coming together and creating this sort of picture of how Better Call Saul makes us feel, And so it was collaborative in that sense. And it was super fun. We weren't really trying to make a short film. We were just making sort of a visual tribute. And
that's one of the things that I really like about this, is that because a lot of people, for obvious reasons, have to announce their, whether it's Star Wars or Twin Peaks or Battlestar Galactica, whatever, they have to say it's a fan film.
Sure, yeah.
But you say that your films are kind of visual homages, and I thought that was really smart, because what that's doing is it's telling the viewer, hey, this is something we love. We all love it. This is why we're here. And we kind of want to, get inspired by it and kind of just get in that mood. And I'm going to take things that you may have seen or heard, and we're going to repurpose them and just kind of, because it's 15 minutes, this film that you made.
Yes.
So it's, so just kind of go in and enjoy yourself. Don't, and I will say your film has a lot of humor in it. So I would say, as a fan, I was surprised by that. I mean, even though Twin Peaks has a lot of humor,
sure, yeah.
A lot of times things can get self-serious when you're making a film, and yours had a lot of humor in it. And so some people may think that you're like mocking the show, and you're definitely not.
Right.
But I can see how like somebody could kind of come in and think, oh, well, he's suggesting this or he's saying this, and at one point you kind of jump out of the reality of Twin Peaks, right? And you kind of take on this meta take on it. I just had a blast watching it, and I think if
Thanks,
I think the fans will really like it. And but if you do get any pushback about it, just understand that David Lynch fans are very passionate. And so don't take everything to heart.
Yeah,
just the good reviews.
Well, that's good. And we when we were making this, I wrote it back in the summer, and as I was writing it, I wasn't really thinking in terms of what will the fans want, or what would even David Lynch want. I was more thinking, how can I honor the series that I love in this? And so, part of that is humor. Part of that is, this darker sort of surreal tone. And so kind of blending those, marrying those with that kind of meta perspective was sort of the only way we could do it, because we already have this sort of meta thing, and that's homaging something we love. And so that in itself kind of has a meta aspect to it. So because Twin Peaks has that, it was sort of the path we had to take, you know. And
all right, let's address the elephant in the room, because something that Twin Peaks and David Lynch fans kind of go at each other in terms of like Braveheart, like, is when the YouTube channel Twin Perfect delivered their Twin Peaks Explained video that went on for 4 hours, and maybe 6 hours if you take the the addendums afterwards. Were you inspired at all by that video in your film? Because I mentioned you do have, you know, a meta aspect. At one point, you have Agent Cooper literally watching Twin Peaks inside the Black Lodge, as well as Invitation to Love and a few other things. So, were you inspired by the Twin Perfect video? And if you were, how so? And if you weren't, where did you want to deviate?
I definitely was. So credit to Twin Perfect. It's a really, really well done video that he made. And so I watched that along with a number of other explanations, breakdowns, theories. And I kind of took a little bit from all of them, because I think it is, you know, it's really cool that there is a pre-existing conversation about what this show means. And so I have to, you know, credit where credit's due. I watched a lot of that stuff and took a lot of inspiration from it. And then I kind of, you know, at the end of the day, I kind of just had to decide what I thought the show means. And so what I think the show means is a little bit like Twin Perfect, but it also has kind of a spiritual aspect to it, which I think kind of deviates a little bit from that meta aspect. And so we tried to tap into some of that. And then obviously the humor.
Well, at one point you have Laura Palmer telling Cooper, "I'll see you at the series finale." I thought that was kind of a, okay, all right, that was my first tip off. I was like, oh, was he inspired by the Twin Perfect video? So I had to ask.
Yeah. So, and you know, the last thing I watched before I wrote the script was season 3 again. And so I tried to make sure that my primary source of inspiration was the show itself, even though there are aspects of interpretations that I kind of borrowed from Twin Perfect and some of these other channels like Lynch, I think is the name of one of them. And, you know, they're all great, but at the end of the day, the main reason it is meta is because it's an homage. And so it has to have the meta aspect, but we did lean into it more since it's Twin Peaks. So
I understand. All right. So you write the script, you have a community of actors and people, you know. How hard was it to pull this together? Even though, I mean, it's a 15-minute short, but people don't understand. Still is a lot of planning. You got a Black Lodge situation. You got other locations.
Yeah.
You have some stunning scenes in the woods. I couldn't believe the lighting you got in that.
Thank you.
And yes, I understand, you know, you can shoot in the woods and not need lighting, but they use lighting. There's definitely some cool effects there. So, so tell me how did you pull this all together?
Yeah. So as with the other short film I made, Partners, it sort of started as a dream, I guess, which is funny to say. And there wasn't really a whole lot of, you know, set design and complicated lighting in my head when I wrote the script. It was just as we started to kind of delve into it and see what was possible, the doorways just kept opening. I think is really cool. And you kind of, and then you reflect that. And so it was really cool. We, you know, these friends, I'm lucky to have friends who are passionate about television and passionate about filmmaking. And, you know, they're not actual actors, they're just friends. And so it makes it that much easier to get together with them and say, hey guys, let's make something really fun. Let's have a blast while we're doing this. It's going to be hard work, but because we're all enjoying it, it's going to go by quickly. And it really did. It went by super quick. I think the only thing that has been super time consuming is editing. And I think we all know that. So
yeah, definitely. And then getting all those sound effects in there.
yeah, exactly.
So how long did it take you to shoot?
Let's see. We shot on weekends, primarily weekends, with the exception of a few cutaway shots throughout the week. You know, we all work full-time jobs, so we just kind of did what we could. And I think we probably shot about 7 days total, maybe 6 days. So not too bad. The Red Room was shot all in 2 days. So, you know, Laura's scenes were shot on a separate day as Cooper's, which was it was kind of a fun challenge.
So she was on one day and he was on the other day, or did you green screen her in?
Yeah, they were on 2 different days. Now Cooper was there, Justin was there as a stand-in for, you know, kind of the over-the-shoulder stuff. But
what about the part where she whispers in his ear?
And that.
I was gonna say, did you like literally match them like Rob Rodriguez style together?
I should have said that. That would have been funny. Yeah, with the exception of those things, almost every shot of him is on a separate day. So,
well, one thing I liked about it too is even though you are doing a visual homage to the show, you definitely. And this is what I like. Your personality kind of came through, even though I have no idea, you know, we don't know each other. Like I felt like
it's okay.
No, because whenever somebody does like an original shot, that's their personality coming through, right?
Right.
And so while there are shots that are obviously inspired by Twin Peaks, you have a lot of original shots in there. Cooper running through the woods. You have sort of, you know, a little Dutch angle going on. You have that stunning. You have that stunning shot that you used in your trailer of the log lady turning towards him and the camera moving in slowly. It's a stunning shot, right? And so that is what I was really responding to, was like where you were. Obviously, I was interested in the whole film, but like I love when filmmakers deviate and go into their own space, because that to me is where you as a filmmaker and the show begins to have a dialogue, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure people are going to bite my head off for this, but like I love Twin Peaks art, like artists, right? People who like, you know, do the illustrations and stuff, love them. But sometimes I just want to say what you're drawing is the way David Lynch sees Twin Peaks, right? What I would love to see a lot of artists do, even though they're immensely talented, I love what they do, don't get me wrong, but if I was to add, you know, a little 2 cents, take your camera position that you have in your head from watching the show and maybe move 5 feet to the left or 10 feet to the right. Show me that scene from your perspective, from a different angle, right? Because, for instance, when I was making my film, people were saying, "Oh, are you gonna try to appropriate how David Lynch, you know, would shoot this?" And I said, "I have no idea how David Lynch would shoot this. I'm not David Lynch."
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that, and I've had some people say to me, "Well, no shit, you're not David Lynch." But that's not the point. The point is that, you know, I didn't live in Philadelphia. I didn't, you know, marry a woman named Peggy and have a daughter named Jennifer. You know, I didn't spend 5 years making Eraserhead. I'm not him.
Right.
So he's going to have a different perspective on everything than I would. So the question is that honor the work, but bring yourself to it. And that is where, again, where the dialogue is going to happen between what the show is and what you're bringing to it, because in that space is where everything is interesting, right? Absolutely. So when you were bringing a lot of these like new shots to the show, and I understand you're doing that too, partly because you're not filming this in Snoqualmie, North Bend. You made this in Georgia. But again, I was very happy that you found some great like wood interiors, and you kept that flavor. But because you're filming this in another state, but you're going for a similar feel, you know, you have to like, you know, work around those. That aspect of it. But in doing so, it also gives us a fresh perspective on the material. Right.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. that was definitely the intention. So I think it is encouraging to hear your perspective as a fellow filmmaker and Lynch fan, that you understood what I was going for. And yeah, I think it was that's a good way of putting it. It was a dialogue, because I wanted to kind of, I wanted to take the creativity that I've learned over the years, the experiences I've had, and similar to, Lynch growing up in Philadelphia, he made Eraserhead. He had all these experiences. They defined his career. They defined his perspective. I think I wanted to kind of take what I learned and then apply that to what would I do if I was in Lynch's place and I wanted to shoot a dream or a nightmare or a scene in the Red Room, And so all of it is highly experimental, and I never want anyone to think, well, you're just trying to copy Lynch, because I'm not. I'm trying to honor him, and the best way I can do that is kind of doing my own thing. And so, as much as this is an homage, it's also creative expression, and like you said, it's art. So
with your film, it's a 50-50. There's a lot of things that are honoring the show.
Yeah.
You take a lot of lines from the show and repurpose them, but you're also, again, bringing your own perspective and your own shots into it as well. So that got me really excited to think, again, no pressure, but like, if you ever did dabble in this world again, I would highly encourage you to lean in more into your vision of it, because I think it's really exciting to be in someone else's perspective in the same universe.
Yeah.
Because then we're seeing things that we may not have thought about before.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if that will ever officially happen if you think about Lynch's work. I mean, Twin Peaks belongs to him, but it is an exciting thought that maybe fans could come together and create some.
I'm talking about what we're doing here. Yeah. I'm not talking about officially released by Showtime. I just mean, like, I think that where the fan world is,
sure,
it's our responsibility to keep this work alive, even though again, it's timeless. But at the same time, though, people do want new things. They want new images. They want new feels.
They do.
Right. And so if you can give this to them, it's a wonderful thing, right? And it really kind of, I don't know, to me, it enriches the show itself. Doesn't matter what season.
I hope so.
And I think that to me, you can't go wrong if your heart's in the right place, right? Yes. I mean, if you're just a cynical bastard who's going like, I'm just gonna rip off David Lynch and Mark Frost, trust me, we will be able to detect that.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think it's easy to get in that headspace of, well, they never went this far, so we have to push it to this direction, or, I really want to add on to, whatever it is. There's always a cynical way you can view it. But I think you and I kind of have the perspective of, we love this show. And so what we're doing is fun. It's enriching, like you said, and it's a celebration more than it is kind of an add-on experience or or proof that fans do it better or anything like that. I think there's a lot of cynicism in fan film community.
Right. Yeah, I never approached it as like, oh, fans can do it better. It was,
oh no,
hey, let me do something that honors, loves, and pays tribute to something that was so important to me growing up, that the only thing I feel like I can truly do as a filmmaker is repay it by making something that has a conversation with what you made.
Absolutely.
So, all right, there's a lot of things to get into. Black Lodge stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had to keep it tight because of the studio space you're in, but
yes.
How fun, how challenging, and how or difficult was it to shoot that? Because I know my actors, that was their favorite day of shooting, was the Black Lodge stuff. What was it like for you?
Super fun. We had a blast with it. And I have to give credit also, while I have a moment, to Justin Little. He's the assistant director on the project, and he's really, I could also accredit the introduction of Twin Peaks to him as well, because he told me about it several years ago, and I just, that stuck with me, because he's a he's a film guy for sure, and so I respect everything he says. But he did such a great job of not only helping to provide some insight and some kind of collaborative efforts, but also the studio he works at is the studio that we shot it in, and so we had that space, and I just kind of filled it with the red room, and we went from there. And he was super gracious to just let us shoot as long as we needed both those days. So we really did. We shot as long as we needed there, and that was a whole lot of fun.
I'm smiling because the day that I shot the Black Lodge sequence, I think we were supposed to be there 8 hours. We were there 14.
Oh, wow.
It was a long day.
That's a real film shoot right there.
Oh my goodness. We were not, and then we had to be shooting again like the next morning. So
Sure.
it was like, oh my god, that's too much. What did you shoot this on?
This was shot on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Pro.
It looks great.
Thank you.
It looks really great. Was a lot of it natural lighting, or did you bring in a lot of lights for it?
A surprising amount of it was natural lighting, but everything in the studio obviously is about three to four separate light sources.
I mean, because it looked natural, but not in that bad way. I mean, it looked rustic, like when they're indoors and that type of thing. And I love the fact that you found the log for Truman. Like, that was a good touch. And you found the lapel pin for Cooper. Like, I mean, trust me, the hardcore Twin Peaks fans, these are the kind of details that we latch on to.
That's cool.
And if you don't have it, it's okay, but if you do, even better. Right?
Yeah, it kind of hits that sweet spot. That it's funny. It is funny looking at this community because there's such a really fun blend of people who love the nostalgia and get really attached to it, and people who are excited by the unknown of it and the surprises and thrills that kind of comes with Lynch's territory.
Then there's some people who hate seasons 1 and 2 and only like season 3.
Yeah.
Or they only like Fire Walk with Me, right? It's just it's fascinating to be honest.
It is. Absolutely.
So this is how I heard of you.
Yes.
I start getting notifications the other day. People saying, "Oh," because I had kind of put out feelers like, would people be interested if I did a continuation of my film? I never planned on it, didn't really think too much about it, but I kept getting, you know how it is, you kept getting these ideas and you're like,
oh yeah,
well, that could work. So I started putting things together and I'm like, you know what, this could be something if we decided to make it something. So I've kind of been putting out the feelers. Hey, would you guys be interested in wanting to see this? And a lot of people have said yes, which is thank you. But I started getting notifications, people saying, hey, I know you've been wanting to do the continuation of Queen of Hearts, but I didn't know you made something in between. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, well, you made this thing, right?
Literally in between.
Right. And I was like, no, that's not me. So of course I have to poke around and figure out what is going on here. And I come across a Reddit post. Now I'm not on Reddit. All right. To be honest, I know there's wonderful people on Reddit, but I have come across a lot of interesting, mean-spirited people on there as well. So I don't typically frequent there, but occasionally, I will pop in once in a while and see what people are talking about. But on a Google search, your thread came up saying that you'd made this this film, and of course I noticed your name, which there's not too many Camerons out there, let alone in the Twin Peaks fan community, as far as I'm aware of, that are making fan works and that type of thing. So I read your post, and then somebody responded back. I'm not quite sure who it was, but they said, "Hey, is this Queen of Hearts 2?" And I don't know if you saw that post or not, but I was like, oh, okay, so they're bombarding this guy about my film, and they're bombarding me about your film. So I was like, okay. So I reached out to you and invited you on here, and then you were kind enough to show me your film early so we could talk about it, because I didn't want to be like, so I like to talk in depth about something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, even though we're recording this earlier, this is going to drop on the 29th, which is go over to his YouTube channel, Novel Wonder, and check it out. He's been teasing the short for a while. So
Yeah.
had you, not to put you on the spot or anything, but had you heard about my film at all, or me reaching out to you was the first time you kind of heard of it? Because I mean, again, you coming into the Twin Peaks universe just 6 months ago, this is all so new to you. So
yeah, I did a deep dive on different interpretations of the show afterwards. I didn't come across your stuff though until after I'd finished.
I'm probably blocked by YouTube.
No. Well, so after I'd finished the script, I was curious to see. I didn't want to become, influenced by any other fan work, but I was curious if there was any other fan work out there. And so
there's not a lot.
There's not a lot. And I saw your work and a couple other, small films that I think yours was the biggest, obviously the feature film. And so
I'm gonna just say, I think there's, again, I'm gonna take the well, I was gonna say the Summer House Pearl Lakes. That's like a 4-part series, but I'm gonna say it's one because it is of a piece. And mine is of a piece as well. I'm gonna say there's, as far as I'm aware, that are online. Okay, I think there's less than 7 out there. There's not that many, and when you compare that to like Star Wars, Star Trek, where small budget to high budget, I mean, there are hundreds.
Yeah,
right. And so one of the things that I was hoping for with my film was to kind of shove the gates open and be like, look what you can do, right? And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you, besides the fact that we share the same name, is that I love this idea of fans kind of wrestling with the material, putting their own stamp on it and saying, what do you think? And kind of just shoving the door, or shoving the ball just a little further down the road,
Yeah.
I think that's really exciting. And because there's so few of us out there, I think I think every time one of us makes something like this, it's exciting and new. Not to quote the Love Boat, but it's right, because it's not like, oh, it's another Star Wars fan film. There's very little, and I'm sure there's more than 7 out there. I'm just saying that when you do a search, not a lot shows up at all.
Right.
And so you're kind of like, okay, this is new territory. And I think it's because, one, I think Twin Peaks is very niche, right, compared to like Star Wars. But at the same time, I think it's a little daunting for people to like, oh, I don't know if I could dip my toe into that. And let me tell you something. It can be daunting, but only if you allow it to be, because as someone like you has made a film as well, you just came into this material.
Yep.
You just shot this thing. It's releasing on the 29th here. I mean, you got to admit, even though you're doing a visual homage to the show, it's very kind of empowering, because you start to realize like how free and experimental Twin Peaks really is when you start making something yourself, because you're like, oh, wait a minute. I could literally do a cut here, or I could do a jump here, or I could cut to a color here. And guess what? It all makes sense because Twin Peaks is of a piece, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of exciting. It's like, well, I don't want to take this shortcut, but if I had to take that shortcut, I can still make it work, because David Lynch has figured out a universe where you could go for it or have to take a shortcut, and it's okay, because it will all fit. It will all work together.
Yeah. One of the things that encouraged me when I was, because like I said, I had joked about doing a kind of soft sequel to Partners that was a Twin Peaks homage, and with my friends, and that's kind of how the Better Call Saul one started too. The Partners one started too, as a joke. So I kind of had a hunch that maybe that was going to happen. But as I was coming up with that idea, I came across that interview where Lynch says that if something doesn't realistically work, doesn't fit within the framework of reality, then he just moves along and creates it the way that it was meant to be created. So he sort of has this I would even say spiritual way of coming about a story, because it's never done until you see it. You know, even in the edit, he's still telling the story. You know, depending on actors' availability, the lighting of the day, all of that enhances the story rather than inconveniencing it. And so that was encouraging for me to hear, because, like you said, it is a freeing experience. You don't think it's going to be, because you're like, this is a pre-established fan base with very specific expectations of what Lynch is and who he is. And so, you know, as daunting as that thought is, it kind of melts away whenever you realize, well, he's an experimenter, and so that's what he does. And so I think it's fun to kind of come at it like that.
Well, it's kind of like season 3. I mean, David Lynch, again, I'm not in his head, but obviously from the, you know, released work, he wasn't worrying about like, oh, is this going to be not so nostalgic for certain people? He just made it whatever he's going to make.
Yeah.
You know, and he, you know, a lot of people kind of looked at season 3 and said, oh, it's the anti-nostalgic show. I don't know if it's that either. I think it's also like he just wanted to make this thing, and then hoped that the gap in time between, you know, Fire Walk with Me and season 3 again would have a dialogue with each other, because that space in between is not irrelevant. It's actually part of the experience, which is why I was kind of happy that you took that 2 weeks off, because season 3 kind of builds off that feeling of like, we've just been waiting here and waiting here. And I mean, it's called The Waiting Room in the Black and White, right?
It is.
So, yeah, it's just, it's I mean, like, for instance, like in Fire Walk with Me, there's that moment where the one-armed man is yelling at Laura and her dad in the car, right? And the music's intensifying, and all of a sudden you get these shots of this black dog barking, and again, there's that song "The Black Dog Runs at Night" in the movie, but those dog shots are not in the script, right? So it was just kind of like an editorial decision of like, hey, can we just get that dog down here and get a close up of that dog barking a few times? And they just worked it in, and it works.
Right. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's it's really fascinating. It's like, when they shot part 8 season 3, they just had the woodsman walking around the convenience store set exterior for, whatever it was, 20-25 minutes. And then they just took every other frame. And so they would just hop around and stuff like that. Right. And was that planned? I don't know. Or is that just a spontaneous editorial decision? I don't know, but it's cool and it works.
Yeah, it works.
Right. And I think that, and I noticed, because you're an editor and I'm an editor as well, when you're playing around in this world, it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, we could add in the sound effect here, and it's not trivial. Like it will make sense. And even if you didn't understand why you wanted that sound effect there, because sometimes it is just a feeling, like I feel like it needs something here. Then when you look back at it, you go, oh yeah, it was supposed to always be there. I just didn't realize it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with that aspect of it, because I guess there is that freeing part of it. There's a little bit of pressure, but it was good pressure to try to balance nostalgia with the kind of experimental part of it. But the experimental part was where we kind of got to just run free. And so especially that nightmare sequence that happens about midway through, that was one that it was not originally in the script, but as I was filming it, I realized I needed something darker in the middle to turn the story. And even though it's a loose story, because it's an homage, it still needs to have that structure to it. And so within that structure, we just went crazy with it. And I'm really excited with how it turned out.
Absolutely. So the hardest thing for you was editorial, or was there a particularly hard day to shoot?
Let's see. There wasn't really a hard day to shoot, honestly. Each day had its challenges, and we kind of had to just make do. The fog machine, the cheap fog machine that I wanted to use, had broken when we were shooting the nightmare sequence, and so And I just sort of took the Lynch route, and I was like, well, why do we need fog? This doesn't need fog for it to be nightmarish and weird. You just need to edit it the right way, have the right costuming, and that's pretty much it. And so,
if you believe in the film gods, which I would think that most filmmakers really should,
yeah,
then you should understand that if something isn't working, if something, doesn't come together, it's because it was not meant to be.
right.
And you need to just think of like, okay, well, I was supposed to zig, but how am I going to zag and get the same effect?
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't mean, just like throw your arms up and go like, whatever happens, happens. I mean, that's a whole different thing. That's
Right.
right. But in terms of like, if you have everything planned to the point where, if just one thing doesn't happen, it's like, okay, well, but we still have 98% of it. It's going to work.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this is sort of that situation where it's probably more like 70 to 80% is planned. You need to have at least somewhat of a structure. I would say at least have the structure ready. And then once you're in that structure, and this is kind of how I feel about creativity in general, is know the rules, know the structure, composition, lighting, framing, acting, all those kind of things. Have them kind of looming overhead. And as long as they're there, you can have as much fun as you want to within that. And if you don't have that much fun, then it'll come across as clinical and uncreative. So you have to find that balance.
Yeah. If you were looking to do a crossover with another show, I'm telling you, the Twin Peaks fan community, they are hungry for a Twin Peaks X-Files crossover. They want it. They want it so badly. Every time I post anything that kind of dips its toe into that, it's like 300, 400 likes. I mean, it's just, people are just going crazy. They want that. So they want to see, I think they want to see David Duchovny talk to Denise.
Yeah. I could definitely see that.
Or they wanted, Mulder and Scully to be the ones that investigated, Cooper's absence or something like that,
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So where do you go from here? Obviously, we are premiering this on the day that that your short is coming out. So what do you, obviously you want to see what the reaction is, and but then what's your next plan?
Well, the next plan will happen regardless of what the reaction is, because it's a labor of love. And I think we've kind of talked ad nauseum about that, but it truly is something fun. And so if people like it, great. If they're kind of sour on it, then that's okay too, because it's really not, it's meant to be seen by Lynch and Mark Frost. Ultimately, I would love for them to see it. And if they don't see it, that's also fine, because it's still it's just fun. And it's just our way of honoring it. So regardless, I think we do have an idea for maybe what the next homage could be. And then I think outside of that, I think we'll probably be done with that framework. And I have some ideas for some original content that I can make. So,
so you're doing this as a trilogy?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. Yeah. There's an idea there. So
that'd be good. It's kind of a great kind of training ground. And then, whatever you decide to move forward with. And I love the fact that you're shooting in Georgia. Big film community in Georgia, believe it or not. People don't know this, but Vampire Diaries, a lot of Marvel stuff was shot in Georgia.
Oh yeah, Star Wars,
Walking Dead, right? It's like, you got a big film industry over there. It's quite cool. You wouldn't think that, but with the heat and everything, but that's exciting.
It is. There's good tax breaks here, but also in general, I think there's a lot of creativity here as well. Even in Augusta, where I live, there's a film community, and a few Hollywood productions have been made here as well. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, my favorite Friday the 13th movie was filmed in Georgia. The Jason Lives Part 6.
That's great.
So let's give a chance for you to talk about some of your actors in the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
you have Justin playing Cooper.
Justin playing Cooper. We have Catherine playing Log Lady. I'm, of course, Gordon Cole, which is part of the meta aspect of everything.
Can I just say something? In my film, I got forced to play Gordon Cole. I think let's just, obviously rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah.
But maybe we should, as a fan film community here, come up with a rule that if you, male or female or however you identify yourself, if you are directing a Twin Peaks fan film, the director has to be Gordon Cole.
It's just the rule. We don't make the rules. We don't make the rules.
I got kind of forced into I got kind of forced into it, and then, but at the same time, it's kind of like you kind of have to do it, don't you?
Where do we go from here? Yeah.
And you had the right hair for it too. See, I don't have the right hair for it, but you had the right hair, and I loved that you were playing with the earpiece to get the music in tune. That was or louder.
Yeah.
It was really good. It was a nice touch.
I appreciate it.
And that's when I was like, okay, there's humor in this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to remind you that's the aspect of it that's supposed to hopefully remind you of the classic series. But
of course.
But yeah, so Catherine plays the Log Lady. She does a great job. She was the biggest surprise of everything, just the way
and she helped you behind the scenes too.
She did. Yeah, she absolutely did. So she likes to kind of be behind the scenes, but I had her in partners as well, and so I wanted to kind of give her.
She gives a good side turn glance, you know.
She does. She gives a great side turn glance. So I had her supervising production for me, and she was just great with making sure everything stayed in line, making sure scenes made sense, that kind of thing. And then I had Justin also producing with me, and he was just a no-brainer for who was going to play Cooper. I mean, he was Gene / Saul for Better Call Saul / just Justin, because really that one's a lot less meta. It's more just people. And so he was great. He put forth a lot of effort, and he is not an actor, but he sure does act like an actor. Everything that he put into that was just phenomenal. And
well, congratulations on getting actors just to show up. I mean, that's I mean, thankfully it didn't happen to me, but I know that's happened to quite a few people I know that have made films. It's like an actor doesn't show up, and it's like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We only have this location today.
Right.
So yeah, that just shows you you're well liked.
Yeah, and they love the project too. I mean, we just had so much fun.
Now, why was Shelley shot in a tight close up, and that was it? Like, why didn't she?
I'm debating whether that's Shelley or just a waitress, but that
have it in the credits as Shelley
Little's fiance. Yeah, and she was there helping with production, so I wanted to get her in there as well.
Yeah.
So that was just a fun little nod. My friend Gary Henderson plays what I'm calling the man from another plague, or the Nightmare Man that you see in the Nightmare sequence. And I have, let's see, Hannah Battle playing Laura Palmer, and she was the only person I had in my head. And again, she's not an actor, but she was my friend, and I was like, if you don't show up for this, then I'm just not going to have Laura in the script. And so she graciously was able to bring that performance, and I was really, really happy with it.
How did you do the backwards talk?
The backwards talk, all of that is ADR, actually, because we couldn't quite get it on set, and so I had to re-record it. But I think it plays pretty decently.
Oh, no, it works fine. I just didn't know if you
did
it the way they did it in season 3. I don't know if you saw the behind the scenes stuff where they talked into like an app, and it would like repeat it to them backwards.
Yeah, that's how we did it on ADR. And we tried doing that on set, but again, it didn't play quite right. And we were at that point, we were kind of pushing the clock. So we were like, okay, we could probably ADR that and figure it out later. And so Hannah, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Who
played Truman?
The Truman, that is Nick Young, and he is an actor, actually. And so he was flawless. I only got, a few takes of him because he just knew what he was doing, and he loves the show as well. And so he did, phenomenal job.
I gotta tell you, the moment that is gonna hit people is when Cooper sees him in the woods and they hug.
Hmm.
It's a moment that all fans want to experience.
Yeah, I did too. I wanted to experience that. And even though I didn't get that, I think in my heart, I was like, this is how it would have happened. You know, if it did happen, this is
I like how Cooper leaves the Black Lodge still with his coffee cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. It almost was like Cooper was going to all these different places just trying to get pie and coffee.
That's it.
It seemed like that was your through thread.
That's it. That's the through line. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like
this coffee.
When Hudson Hawk is like trying to get his cappuccino or something. It's just
yeah. Yeah, we figured that was the best kind of playful way to make the plot make sense. And
well, let me throw out 2 cents here, whether it be Twin Peaks related or your own original thing.
Sure.
I would love to see you lean into more of that nightmarish kind of woods thing you got going on. I think you could do like really like a, if not a feature, definitely a really intense, scary short for YouTube. And since it's the fall season,
yeah, man, yeah,
it might be something to lean into.
I'm actually working on a project that's kind of in that same vein right now, so that might be the next project. It's I wouldn't say it's a horror, but it's definitely suspense thriller kind of feeling. So
I mean, because I mean, you can look at this and go like, okay, you can do this mood and this mood, but it almost seems like when you again, I'm saying this again, but the the leaning into the once it gets into like your original stuff, right? Like for instance, like Cooper running into the woods and the lighting effects and everything, it's kind of like, oh, this is where we're really kind of coming alive. Not that we weren't engaged before, but because this is now new thoughts, new ideas, new, right. You know, it's like you putting yourself into it. So therefore it's just kind of like all of a sudden, not that we were complacent before, but you know, we're used to seeing certain images.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're showing us this new stuff and it's like, okay, now I'm really engaged. Where is this going? Right. What is going to happen?
Right.
And so that to me is like, okay, if you can get us feeling that way, then that shows you have a lot of talent. And, you know, if you definitely went into that direction and did an entire film with that kind of energy, that would be really exciting stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I hope that's where I can go next. I think that would be really fun. I like a good suspenseful horror, kind of surreal horror. So I would love to kind of push in that direction a little more in the next one. But overall, yeah, I think just it's just been a fun exercise. You know, the whole thing is just, it's taught me a lot as a filmmaker about what works, what doesn't. Now I'll borrow a little bit from Lynch. You know, I borrowed a little bit from Peter Gould and Marshall Adams with Better Call Saul, and now it's like, you know, you're always taking inspiration and paying tribute to those people. So
you kind of have to, because you are kind of playing in their world, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously there's going to be some things in there that you're going to have to touch on.
Out of it. Yeah.
So far, what has been the reaction to your teasers and trailers so far?
I've been really, really excited by the reaction. You know, there's been a handful of fans who have expressed excitement to watch it and have supported it just right out of the gate, even on Reddit, you know.
Lucky you.
yeah, even on Reddit, you know, there's some negativity kind of surrounding it, but that's just, you know, that's how it goes all the time. And so I'm kind of bracing myself for that, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. But
no,
it has been really cool. And even a lot of friends are saying, you know, I don't know anything about Twin Peaks, but I want to watch it because I liked Partners. So I'm excited.
I think people who don't know the show can watch this. They may not understand what's going on, but I think it's short enough for people to be engaged with. And I think that it will turn some people into, you know, checking it out.
I hope so. I really do. I told my friends when we were making this, I was like, man, I hope we can turn over some people to Twin Peaks, because ultimately, you know, that's what we want. We want to celebrate the show, and if more people watch it and find that hidden gem, that you know, amazing world of Twin Peaks, then mission accomplished, you know?
Right, exactly. And I feel like, you know, people sit through the seasons and the movie, but they, you know, and they go through the books, and they're just like, I just want more content, you know, I just want more.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's where, you know, the fans
Where
can
we
come
come in.
in, and
Fans.
you can get an illustration, you can watch a fan work, you can, you know, buy a pin, you can own a log. I don't know, you know what I mean?
You
Like
can pick up a lot.
I've seen people on Twitter post their Twin Peaks collections, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot of stuff. And I've gone to like a Twin Peaks Airbnb, and it's just like, it's amazing being in that like universe, you know.
That's
It's like, it's because like when I was a kid and watching it on TV, I never knew anybody who watched the show, you know. And
right.
now,
Right.
and talking with so many people during season 3, it was like, yeah, I never knew anybody watching this show either. And then all of a sudden, when the new season came out, it was like we all kind of discovered each other. It's like, oh wow, you were the only person in your town that watched it too. Right.
That's great.
So yeah, great. Well, congratulations on this, and I think I think a lot of fans are really going to enjoy it, and I like that you take it seriously, but I also like it that you don't take it so seriously. Again, you're having fun with it, but you're playing in the universe, and
Yeah.
every film is difficult to make, but it's even harder to make one that's entertaining. And you definitely have made one that entertained me as a longtime David Lynch Twin Peaks aficionado. And as someone who has actually made a fan film myself in the Twin Peaks universe, I tip my hat to you and say congratulations.
Well, Cameron, that is honestly the highest compliment I could possibly receive for this. So mission accomplished already for me. I don't even need to see what the reaction is. I really do.
Oh, but you will be looking at all those thumbs up though and after it drops.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited.
All right, everybody. Well, make sure to head over to the YouTube channel Novel Wonder and watch Cameron's film Between Two Worlds. It's 15 minutes. It won't take a long part of your day, and I think you'll greatly enjoy it, especially if you love the world of Twin Peaks. So, as for us, you know where to find us: Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're now on Bluesky. It's a new thing. I don't know. Come find us over there. Email us anytime at obnoxiousandanonymous@hotmail.com. Thank you again for watching. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. We just hit 4,000. So thank you so much. And we will see you soon. Take it easy and bye-bye.